Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. John Kelly Profiler here, and welcome. Welcome to part 9 of our very sad video series, Who Killed Libby and Abby? That's right, who killed Libby German and Abby Williams? Today the name of this show is The Killer's Final Destination. And we'll get to that in a minute. First of all, I want to say that everybody is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And with that being said, I just want to reiterate something about law enforcement up in Indiana. I don't know of a cop in Indiana that doesn't want to solve this case. That's number one. And I know some people are going short on patience up there. But what you have to understand is once the cops make an arrest, the clock starts ticking. Everybody in the United States has a right to a speedy trial. With that being said, the cops have a limited amount of time to get out there and make their case that they're probably eventually going to have to go to court with. So please try and be patient with law enforcement up there. I know they're doing everything they can do. This is not an easy case, and even if they're onto somebody, they still have to make the case, because as soon as they arrest somebody, that clock starts ticking, and they have to make that deadline. So anyway, the other thing I want to bring up today, as I said earlier, is the final destination. Killer's final destination. What did he have in mind? Because what we saw and what we believe, at least I believe, is that this guy was pretty proficient at moving the girls, actually hurting the girls, if you will, without them knowing, into the end of the bridge. And as soon as they crossed that bridge, as soon as they were on the other side of that bridge, it seemed like this guy was right there. I mean, I don't know how old he is. I don't know how young he is yet. I'm leaning more to, being younger, because he moved pretty good across that bridge, hands in his pockets at times. I mean, based on what we know, based on what I've seen. But all I know is he was pretty sophisticated in that respect. He herded them into his control zone. Now he's got them in his control zone. He pulls out his gun and he says, down the hill. Now, where did this guy want to take them at this point? Because we've got a couple of theories here. The one theory is that he started off down the hill, and as they were going down the hill and then down another hill, at some point, the girls made a break for it. He caught up with them and he killed them. They ran through the creek. He ran through the creek. They were on the other side of the creek. And at that point in time, he killed them. Okay, that's a theory. See, even though he had a gun on him, I mean, who knows? He could have slipped. Something could have happened. A mistake a lot of people make is that they believe that when a person has a gun on someone, it's going to be like on TV, that person is going to do exactly what they say. This is very far from the truth, because when you pull a gun on someone or on two people, you really have no guarantee on what they're going to do. I mean, people do crazy and different things when guns are aimed at them. Usually these guys say, look, I'm not going to hurt you. I just want you to do what I tell you to do, and you will not get hurt. That's usually their spiel, which is all bullshit. Okay, to keep them under control. But that's no guarantee that the person that has the gun on them is going to do exactly what the person wants, the person with the gun. Because, they pretty much know wherever they're going isn't going to be a good situation, and, they can make a break for it at any time. So I'm kind of thinking that they made a break for it and they ran in and he caught them across the creek. Now that's my theory, and I don't know. I don't have a better one right now, and I'll tell you why. Because if you're looking at this guy, and we're realizing that he was pretty much methodical in getting them into his control zone on the other side of that bridge, that was pretty sophisticated. He wasn't seen. Nobody saw them. I mean, he was stealth-like, okay? So now, if his final destination for these girls was on the other side of that creek, then that kind of throws off his sophistication in a big way. Because even though that creek supposedly was low, say around March or April, when different people took shots of it, and some people did some very, very good work out there, in mapping out, how this crime pretty much took place. So they talked about the creek being shallow. But we have to remember that on February 13th, 2017, that there was snow, I think, Thursday, pretty good amount of snow up there around Thursday, Friday. Then the sun came out and warmed up, and a lot of the snow melted, going to Saturday, Sunday, if I got it correctly. And then the girls were out there Monday when this guy grabbed them. So that creek would have been, I have to believe, much higher, but also that creek would have been very cold. Now, and slippery, okay? And the rock bed underneath it probably was extremely slippery. So for somebody that seems so sophisticated in the initial act of control, but then taking them down over hill over dale, and then his final destination, believing that he was going to take them across the creek, which is deeper, certainly very cold, it's certainly very slippery, and he's going to herd two girls across there. They're going to do exactly what he says and get them on the other side. I just don't know if that kind of thinking was really conducive to his original plan. I personally think his original plan fell apart. And of course, with Libby videoing him and getting his voice, I think his plan really fell apart, which he didn't know anything about. So, that's my theory. My theory is they got away, and that was not his perceived final destination for them, and that was not part of his fantasy on where he was going to bring them. So, that leads to the question, on where was he going to bring them if that was not it? That would lead us to believe that he would try to take them somewhere else. Now, where would he take them? I mean, it's February 13th. It's a nice day out. There's no question about it, but it's still February 13th. If he has any sexual ideas for these girls, I think he's going to want to take them to a place that's secluded and maybe indoors, maybe not outdoors. Because it's easier to establish a control zone indoors inside something, inside some kind of dwelling, versus outside in the woods in broad daylight where anybody could run or take off or whatever. So I don't know what he had in mind. So that leads me to believe maybe he had intentions of getting them down the hill, getting them down one of those roads or paths, and getting them to some type of dwelling or some kind of vehicle. I'm honestly thinking, some kind of dwelling, some kind of cover. That's what he had. Those are the plans that he intended, and then they fell apart when the girls broke and ran on him. That's my theory today. The other part of it is that we're dealing with a man who knew the area extremely well. I mean, I've watched pretty much everybody's videos, and I got to tell you that whoever did this, it seems like this guy really, really knew that area like the back of his hand. Now, can it be a transient guy who stayed there for a while and really hung out up there and hung in that area? Possible, very possible. But the more I look at it, the more I'm considering somebody that really, really put a lot of time into that area. And as I said, knew that area like the back of his hand extremely well. So, when I look at other killers, and I'm going to say serial killers for now, when I look at serial killers, I look at like Ted Bundy. And I see Ted Bundy's victims. And quite a few of Ted Bundy's victims were college students. And where did Ted Bundy hang out? He hung around colleges. We say habituated. He hung out around colleges. Okay? When we look at Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, most of his victims were in the business of prostitution. Where did Gary Ridgway habituate? Where did he hang out? He hung out with prostitutes. When we look at Joel Rifkin from Long Island, where did Joel Rifkin hang out all the time? Not that him and Ridgway killed every time out, they didn't. But where did they hang out a lot? Watching, looking, lurking, stalking, hunting. Joel Rifkin hung out in New York with a lot of women that were involved in the business of prostitution. So what that tells us is that usually this type of person hangs out in an area where he has his preferred victims. And I've mentioned before, I believe this guy hangs out in places, around places, maybe even works in places where there's kids. So when we look at the area that this guy killed Abby and Libby and left them, we have to believe he knew it extremely well. And we have to believe that he spent a lot of time there. I mean, don't forget, this guy was pretty much flawless in his entrance and his exit from that area in the crime scene. I mean, maybe, somebody got to look at him. Obviously, they did. But supposedly for all the people that were around the area that day, that guy was pretty stealth-like. Okay? We'll see. So I'm thinking if we can focus on somebody that hung around that area quite a bit to the point of habituating in the area, it became a habit for him, like Gary Ridgway, hanging out with prostitutes, or Joel Rifkin hanging out with prostitutes, or Ted Bundy hanging out around colleges to get college kids. If we can look at someone who maybe even lives closer to that area, to where these girls were killed, if we can look at someone who was constantly in that area, constantly, whether it be fishing, whether it be hunting, whether it be hiking, whether it be hunting mushrooms or something else like that. Some of you may know a person like that. So, this guy was always over there. This guy was into that area. This guy really was interested in that bridge. I mean, he really took an interest in, trains and railroad tracks and bridges, or, he was always hunting over in that area. He was always fishing over in that area in Deer Creek. We think of somebody who knew that area really well and was there a lot. was there a good part of the time. And then we say, well, let me see, did this guy match those sketches? Because maybe if we focus on this killer's destination and his familiarity with the area, maybe we can jog somebody's memory and they will remember. You will remember somebody like that who knew the area like the back of their hand. May even have a prior history of acting out sexually with younger girls. And maybe if your memory's jogged, you can say, hey, I remember him. He hung out there all the time. And he looks like that sketch. So maybe instead of focusing on the sketch first, we need to focus on people that were extremely familiar or lived right around that area, and then see how they matched up to the sketch. Again, I have to think that that was not his planned final destination for those girls. I believe he had something else in mind, and I believe it had to do with inside a dwelling and having an inside control zone where nobody could see anything and would be much easier to control the girls. But that's just my 2 cents for today. Please continue to send your comments. Please continue to send your feedback. This is all coming together piece by piece by piece by piece because of you guys. You guys are the ones that are out there. You're in the front lines. You know the areas. You know the information. And eventually, if you haven't already, you're going to tip the cops and they're going to scoop this guy up. There's no question. I have no doubt in my mind, okay, that you're going to get him. Okay? And as everybody says, let this be the day. So, again, thank you so much for all your support. Thank you so much for all your subscriptions. Thank you for just everything you've done for the girls, for us, and hopefully we bring this guy down soon. Make it a great day and stay safe out there. Thank you.